The first thing I noticed wasn't the smell of fresh coffee in the lobby or the chatter of coworkers arriving for another Monday morning. It was the sight of 3 black garbage bags sagging against the marble wall, bulging with what I instantly recognized as mine. My potted fern, dirt spilling from the tilted ceramic pot, a half-crushed photo frame of me and my mother, a tangle of charging cables. Even the bright yellow coffee mug I'd brought from home, the one with "World's Okayest Employee" written on it, sat lopsided on top like some cruel joke. For a moment, I just froze. The air felt too heavy, like someone had yanked all the oxygen from the room. My carry-on bag, still rolling behind me from last week's client trip, thudded against my ankle when I stopped walking. Then his voice cut through the lobby. "Lisa, perfect timing. We're downsizing. Get out." It was my manager, Greg. His tone wasn't sharp or angry. It was casual, almost rehearsed, as if he'd been waiting all weekend to deliver this line. He stood there in his pressed navy suit, gold watch glinting as he checked the time, like he was already late for something more important. "You're 25, he added with a smirk as if it explained everything. "You'll bounce back." The words hit harder than the bags at my feet. Behind him, a half-circle of colleagues had formed, pretending to be busy. Some avoided my eyes, tapping on their phones. Others watched openly, like spectators at a street fight. I caught sight of Marcus from accounting, his mouth twitching like he was fighting a grin. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to remind them all of what I'd done last week. Flying across the country on 2 days' notice, negotiating with a difficult client, pulling a deal back from the brink. The contract I had closed was worth millions to this company. And now? My reward was seeing my life stuffed into garbage bags like last week's trash. But instead of saying any of that, I just stood there, the sound of my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. "Security will escort you out if you need help with those," Greg said, already glancing at his phone again. "Your access card's been deactivated. Separation paperwork will arrive by email. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I bent down, my hands trembling as I gripped the slick plastic of the bags. The wait was awkward, humiliating. Not a single person stepped forward to help. Not even Naomi, the one I used to have lunch with every Friday. She stared at the floor tiles like they might crack open and swallow her whole. As I straightened with the bags in my arms, I caught Greg's expression. A flicker, the corner of his mouth lifting, just slightly. Satisfaction. That's when I knew this wasn't about downsizing. This was personal. I shuffled through the lobby, my shoulders burning under the strain, my carry-on wheels squeaking against the floor. Whispers trailed behind me like smoke. A few people slowed down to watch me leave, their eyes gleaming with curiosity, as though I were the morning's entertainment. When my planner slipped from one of the bags and fanned open on the floor, pages of color-coded notes, client schedules, meetings lined up for the next 3 months, I didn't even stop to pick it up. I left it there, a splash of order in the middle of chaos. Outside in the parking lot, I shoved the bags into my trunk, my arms aching. Then I sank into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. That was when something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't peel out of the garage in a blaze of rage and rubber. Instead, I smiled. Not the brittle kind of smile you force in front of people, but a calm, knowing smile that rose from somewhere deep inside me. The kind of smile that said, "You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've just started." I raised my hand and waved once, through the windshield, through the glass doors of the lobby where I could still see their faces pressed against the windows, watching. Then I put the car in reverse and drove away in silence. That night, I sat at my mother's kitchen table, steam curling from a chipped mug of chamomile tea. I recounted everything, every humiliating detail, while she listened with her lips pressed thin. "Something doesn't add up," she finally said, her voice steady. "You closed a major deal. Why fire you right after?" The question kept me awake long after she'd gone to bed. Why now? Why so sudden? Why with garbage bags instead of a conversation? I didn't have the answer yet, But 1 week later, my phone buzzed on the table, screen lighting up again and again. First one message, then 10, then 30. By noon, there were over 100. Lisa, where are you? We need to talk now. This is urgent. Call me back. Where are you? The same manager who had smirked as I hauled garbage bags out of the building was now blowing up my phone, desperate. I stared at the screen, my lips curling into that same quiet smile I'd given him from the driver's seat a week earlier. He had no idea what he'd unleashed. The first time I actually opened Greg's messages, it was late at night. The glow of my phone, the only light in my mother's small kitchen. I'd ignored him all day, letting the notifications pile up until the buzzing had become white noise. Now I scrolled through them slowly, one by one. Lisa, please pick up. It's urgent. Where are you? We need your files. Do you still have the Henderson notes? Call me back. This is a disaster. The panic in his words was almost laughable. The same man who had stood in the marble lobby, tapping his watch, smirking at my humiliation, was now begging for my help. My mother, sitting across from me with her sewing kit in her lap, noticed my expression. What is it? She asked. I turned the phone toward her. She adjusted her glasses, read a few of the frantic texts, and let out a sharp breath. So now he remembers your worth? She muttered. Typical. I leaned back in my chair, the memory of that morning still raw. The garbage bags, the whispers, his smug face. And yet, here he was, 1 week later, desperate. Something was unraveling, and I needed to understand what. The next morning, I opened my laptop for the first time since being fired. At first, I thought about job hunting, polishing my resume. But instead, my fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing something else entirely. Client contact list. From memory, I began writing down everything I knew from the past 3 years. Names, direct phone numbers, preferences, inside jokes, pain points. Information I had carried in my head, not on the company servers. Information that Greg couldn't wipe or stuff into garbage bags. By the time I stopped, I had 4 full pages. It struck me then. I wasn't powerless. Greg hadn't fired an employee. He'd thrown away the one person who understood the very clients keeping his department alive. That realization settled over me like armor. At noon, my phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me said answer. Hello? Lisa? The voice was familiar, deep, steady. This is David Henderson. My breath caught. Henderson. The CEO I had flown out to Phoenix to meet just 10 days earlier. The deal I had closed. The one worth millions. Yes, Mr. Henderson, I said carefully, my voice steadier than I felt. I've been trying to reach you through your office, he said. But they keep telling me you're gone, that you left suddenly for another opportunity. Is that true? The words slammed into me like a cold wave. So that was the story Greg had fed them. No, I said firmly. I didn't leave. I was terminated, effective immediately. Silence stretched on the other end, and then Henderson exhaled sharply. That doesn't make sense. I specifically told Greg we wanted you as our main point of contact moving forward. You know our operations. You built the solution. Why would they? He trailed off, frustration clear. I could almost see it. Him sitting at his desk, realizing the company had lied. Lisa, he said finally, his tone shifting. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow? I think we need to discuss this directly. When I hung up, my hands shook. Henderson, calling me, not the firm, not Greg, me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Greg's smug voice in the lobby. We're downsizing. You'll bounce back. And now the puzzle pieces were clicking into place. This wasn't about downsizing. This was about credit. I remembered the way Greg had hovered during the Phoenix meetings, adding nothing, just nodding at my talking points, repeating my phrases as if they were his own. He'd stood beside me in photos, his name plastered first on every slide deck. And when Henderson had requested me directly, that must have been the breaking point. Greg didn't want a star on his team. He wanted the spotlight for himself. And firing me right after closing the deal meant he could claim the victory alone. But clearly, his plan was already crumbling. The next day, I sat across from Henderson at a quiet corner table in an upscale downtown restaurant. He ordered coffee, black. I ordered tea, my hands wrapped tightly around the warm cup to steady myself. "I'll be blunt," he said once the server left. "Your former boss is in trouble. The implementation meeting yesterday was disastrous. The new hire they brought in had no idea what she was talking about. When we asked about the logistics model you designed, Greg froze. He couldn't explain it. Not one detail." My lips pressed together to hide the smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "We didn't sign with your firm for their reputation," Henderson continued. "We signed because of you, and now frankly we're considering pulling the contract altogether." His eyes locked onto mine. Unless what?" I asked, my voice low. "Unless you come on board. Not with them. With us, as an independent consultant." The offer hung between us like an open door. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, and I did. But more than that, I felt something deeper. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about choice. Greg had tossed me aside like I was nothing. But here I was, 1 week later, with the very client he thought he owned, offering me the chance to rebuild on my own terms. I didn't give Henderson an answer that moment. I just nodded slowly, my mind already racing with possibilities. When I left the restaurant, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Greg. "Lisa, please. We need you. Henderson is furious. Call me back." I slipped the phone into my bag without replying. For the first time since those garbage bags, I felt calm. Greg wasn't my boss anymore. He was just a man standing in quicksand, and every frantic text was proof he was sinking deeper. And this time, I had no intention of throwing him a rope. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual, my mind buzzing with Henderson's offer. Independent consultant. It sounded powerful, freeing, but terrifying too. No steady paycheck. No HR department to hide behind. Just me. I sat at my mother's small kitchen table with a pad of paper making 2 columns. Pros. Freedom. Higher pay. Direct client relationships, no Greg. Cons. Unstable income. Legal risks, Greg. Because of course, Greg wasn't done with me. My phone was proof. Overnight, he'd sent another 20 messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Lisa, we can work something out. Don't do anything rash, just call me. You're making this worse for yourself if you don't respond." That last one made my blood boil. Worse for myself? I hadn't done anything but work myself to exhaustion for 3 years. He was the one spiraling, and now he wanted me to feel guilty for it. I closed my notebook and pushed it away. I wasn't ready to decide yet, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't go back. By mid-morning, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number again. For a second, I thought it was Henderson, but the voice on the other end surprised me. "Lisa, it's Naomi." I paused. Naomi, the co-worker who had avoided my eyes that morning in the lobby. We used to eat lunch together every Friday. She sounded nervous, whispering like she didn't want anyone to hear. "I don't know if I should be calling you, but..." She lowered her voice further. "Something's happening here. Henderson's threatening to cancel, and Greg is blaming you. He's telling everyone you walked out that you're withholding files to sabotage him." I gripped the phone tighter. "That's not true." "I know," she said quickly. "A lot of us know. But Lisa, he's unraveling. He spent half the morning in his office shouting on the phone. Tristan from legal says the board is getting complaints. I just thought you should know." Her words sank in slowly. Greg wasn't just scrambling. He was panicking. And if the board was involved, this was bigger than one angry client. "Thank you for telling me," I said softly. Naomi hesitated, then added, "If you do something, if you fight back, Just know some of us are rooting for you. That night, I pulled out my laptop again. Instead of wallowing or job hunting, I opened a fresh document. At the top, I typed, Carson Consulting, draft plan. It wasn't much, just bullet points. Services I could offer, skills I had, names of clients who trusted me. But as I typed, the fear I'd carried all week began to loosen. I didn't need Greg. I didn't even need the firm. I had everything I needed in my head, in my experience, in my relationships. By midnight, I had the rough skeleton of a business plan. Nothing polished, nothing official, but something. A direction. And as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time, not a text. An email. From Greg himself. Subject line, URGENT, Henderson Implementation. I hesitated before opening it. Lisa, this is out of control. We need you in the office tomorrow for the Henderson meeting. I'll make sure everything is smoothed over, but you need to come in. Without you, this is going to blow up. Don't throw away your career over hurt feelings. Greg. I stared at the screen, stunned by the sheer arrogance. Hurt feelings? Was that how he framed stuffing my life into garbage bags and marching me out of the lobby in front of everyone? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to fire back a scathing reply. But then I stopped. Number silence was louder. Silence forced him to panic more. Instead, I forwarded the email to Ezra, a lawyer friend from college who specialized in employment law. His reply came within the hour. Don't go back. Don't sign anything. They fired you. End of story. If they're desperate, it means you have leverage. Call me tomorrow. We'll talk options. Leverage. That word lit something inside me. The following day, Henderson called again. His voice was brisk, but there was a hint of impatience now. Lisa, I need an answer. We have another implementation meeting Friday, and I don't trust Greg's team to handle it. If you're in, I'll pay double what you made at the firm. Independent contract. No strings attached. My throat went dry. This was real. This wasn't a fantasy in my mother's kitchen. Henderson wanted me. Not the firm, not Greg. Me. I'll do it, I said before I could second-guess myself. Good, Henderson said. I'll have my assistant send over the paperwork. Friday morning, 10 a.m. Same office building. You'll come as our consultant. The irony hit me like a thunderclap. 1 week after being marched out with garbage bags, I would be walking back in. Not as an employee, but as the client's representative. That night, I told my mother. She listened, arms crossed, her eyes sharp. Just remember, she said finally, this isn't just about proving Greg wrong, this is about proving yourself right. Her words settled in my chest. She was right. Revenge might be sweet, but survival, success, that was the real victory. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzed one last time. Another text from Greg. Lisa, if you don't show up tomorrow, you'll regret it. I smiled in the dark. He had no idea how much I was looking forward to showing up. Friday morning, I dressed differently than I ever had for that office. No neutral blouses or conservative flats. I chose a tailored charcoal suit, sharp lines that made me feel taller, stronger. My mother had insisted on ironing it the night before. Go in looking like the boss, she'd said. Walking through the lobby doors felt like stepping into a memory. Only this time, I wasn't dragging garbage bags behind me. This time, I held my head high, a leather folder tucked under my arm. The security guard did a double take when I approached the desk. Last week, he'd avoided eye contact as I was escorted out. Today, he cleared his throat nervously. Morning, Ms. Rivera. What brings you back? I slid a business card across the counter. Henderson Shipping. My name beneath, independent consultant. I'm here for the Henderson implementation meeting, I said evenly. His eyebrows shot up, but after a quick phone call, he handed me a visitor badge. 15th floor, conference room B. I pinned the badge to my suit jacket, smiled politely, and stepped into the elevator. The doors opened, and almost immediately I ran into Tristan from legal. He nearly spilled his coffee. "Lisa," he sputtered. "What are you… how… working?" I cut in smoothly, brushing past him. Every step toward the conference room felt electric, like the whole building was holding its breath. When I opened the door, Henderson and 2 of his board members were already seated. They smiled when they saw me. "Lisa, good to see you," Henderson said, standing to shake my hand. "Glad you could join us." "Happy to help," I replied, my voice steady even as adrenaline coursed through me. Behind Henderson, I spotted Naomi and Spencer from marketing. Their eyes widened when they saw me, relief flickering across their faces. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door swung open. Greg strode in, flanked by Tristan and a young woman I recognized only from the hallways. Maya, a recent hire. Greg's smile faltered when his eyes landed on me. "What is she doing here?" he snapped, his voice cracking slightly. Henderson didn't miss a beat. "Ms. Rivera is here representing our interests. Given her deep knowledge of the project, it's only logical she be involved." For a moment, the room went silent. Greg's face twitched as he tried to recover, forcing a laugh. "Well, of course, if that's what you want. But surely my team can handle…" "Your team couldn't answer basic questions last week." Henderson interrupted sharply. "We won't waste more time. Lisa stays." The power dynamic shifted in an instant. Greg sank into his chair, his jaw tight. I sat across from him, my calm expression hiding the storm raging inside me. The meeting began. Henderson laid out the agenda, then turned to me. "Lisa, could you walk us through the logistics model again? Particularly the integration timeline." I nodded, opening my folder. As I spoke, clear, concise, confident, I felt the room leaning in. Even Naomi was scribbling notes. Maya looked utterly lost. And Greg? He sat stiff, clutching his pen so tightly I thought it might snap. At one point, he tried to interrupt. "Actually, I think what Lisa means is…" "No," I said firmly, locking eyes with him. "I mean exactly what I said." The silence that followed was thick. Henderson raised an eyebrow but let me continue. It was subtle, but in that moment, the balance tipped. For the first time, Greg wasn't in control. After 2 hours, Henderson called for a break. People filed out for coffee, whispering to each other. Greg cornered me by the window, his voice low and venomous. "Clever stunt," he hissed. "But if you think this little show is going to last, you're mistaken. You don't belong here anymore." I held his gaze, steady as stone. "I belong wherever my clients want me. And right now, that's here." "You're sabotaging me," he spat. "No, Greg," I said calmly. "You sabotaged yourself when you fired the one person who actually understood this project." His face flushed, a vein throbbing in his temple. For once, he had no snappy comeback. When the meeting resumed, I stayed professional, answering questions, clarifying processes. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Greg's silence spoke louder than anything I could have said. By the end, Henderson was smiling. "This is the kind of clarity we needed," he said. "Excellent work, Lisa. We'll move forward with this revised schedule." He shook my hand firmly. Across the table, Greg looked like he might be sick. Walking back through the lobby after the meeting, visitor badge still pinned to my jacket, I felt eyes on me again. The same curious stares from coworkers who had watched me leave in disgrace a week ago. Only this time, there were no garbage bags, no humiliation. Just me, walking out with my head high. And as I stepped into the sunlight, my phone buzzed with a new message. Not from Greg, from Naomi. "We need to talk. Something's happening behind the scenes, and you should know." I stopped on the sidewalk, staring at the screen. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Naomi's text sat on my screen like a blinking warning light. "We need to talk. Something's happening behind the scenes, and you should know." We met that evening at a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the office. She slipped into the booth across from me, eyes darting to the door like we were doing something illegal. When the barista set down our drinks, she exhaled and slid a thin manila folder from her tote. "I shouldn't have this," she whispered, "but I can't watch him do this to you." Inside were printouts, meeting minutes, snippets of Slack messages, a copied email chain that made my chest go cold. The first email was dated the night before my firing. Subject line, RIF justification, client relations. Greg had written, "We can frame this as downsizing." With Lisa out, I'll maintain continuity as the primary closer and qualify for the transition bonus. New hire, Maya, can stand in on paper while we stabilize. The next was to IT. Please prep a device wipe at 8:40 a.m. and bag personal effects. Access card to be deactivated on arrival. Then a Slack thread that felt like a punch. Tristan from legal warning Greg that Henderson had requested me by name. Greg's reply, "We'll say she left for a better opportunity. Buy us a week." "Lisa," Naomi said softly. "He orchestrated it. He didn't even have another plan. He just thought he could wing it." I stared at the pages until the words blurred. There was nothing dramatic to say. No speech. Just a quiet, immovable truth. I had been used. "Why help me?" I asked finally. Naomi swallowed. "Because you helped me when I started, and because this isn't right." I nodded, slid the folder back toward me, and thanked her. When I got home, I scanned everything and sent it to Ezra with a single line. "What's the cleanest way to use this?" His reply came fast. "Keep it factual. No commentary. Prepare a timeline. I'll draft a letter to the board and to Henderson outlining misrepresentation and breach exposure. You stay calm and professional." I spent the next 2 hours building a timeline. Dates, meetings, the Phoenix trip, the morning of the garbage bags, the calls from Henderson, the botched implementation. I attached Naomi's documents, my offer letter, my termination email. No adjectives, no revenge. The following morning, Ezra sent 2 letters, one to the firm's board and general counsel, another to Henderson's team. The letters weren't threats. They were mirrors. They simply reflected what had happened and what the potential consequences might be if Henderson pulled their contract for cause. By afternoon, Henderson called. "We sent a formal notice," he said matter-of-factly. 72 hours to remedy. If they can't, we terminate and move our business with you as lead consultant. You're covered either way." I thanked him, then sat still for a long time in my mother's living room, my heartbeat finally slowing. There's a difference between vengeance and consequence. I wasn't burning anything down. I was just telling the truth and letting gravity do its work. 2 days later, the firm requested a meeting. Board representatives, HR, legal, Henderson, me, and, of course, Greg. We gathered in a glass-walled conference room on the executive floor. Sunlight poured in, too bright for how small the space suddenly felt. A woman from the board with steel gray hair led the call. "Thank you for joining," she began. "We've reviewed the materials submitted by Ms. Rivera's counsel and Mr. Henderson's notice. We'd like clarity." Greg tried to go first. "This is being blown out of proportion." "Please wait," the board member said, not unkindly. She turned to me. "Ms. Rivera, can you walk us through your timeline?" I did. Cleanly. No raised voice, no dramatics. Phoenix, the contract terms. Henderson's request that I be the point person. The morning of the garbage bags, the device wipe, the visitor badge a week later. When I finished, Henderson spoke. "Our decision to sign was based on Ms. Rivera's work. The misrepresentation to our board, that she had left for another opportunity, put this relationship at risk." Greg leaned forward, palms up. "We had to act quickly. Budget pressures, restructuring." The board member slid a printout across the table. One of Naomi's emails. Greg's transition bonus line glared up from the page. "Mr. Carver," she said evenly, "was this about budget or your bonus?" Silence. Tristan's pen stopped tapping. Henderson's eyes didn't move from Greg's face. For a long 10 seconds, no one spoke. HR cleared her throat. "Given the new information," she said, "we're placing Mr. Carver on immediate leave pending investigation. Implementation leadership for Henderson will transition away from his team." Greg opened his mouth, then closed it again. No watch tapping now, no smirk. Just a smallness I had never seen in him. The board member turned to me. "Ms. Rivera, the firm would like to retain you independently for 90 days to stabilize Henderson and advise on corrective processes. Rate at your proposal. Full authority on the implementation side. We understand you report to Mr. Henderson." I glanced at Henderson. He gave a slight nod. This was what realistic justice looks like. Not a dramatic sacking in the lobby, not a triumphant speech. Just the messy work of putting things back where they should have been. "I accept," I said. After the meeting, Naomi caught me by the elevators. "I'm glad you showed them," she whispered. "I didn't show them anything they didn't already know," I said. "I just put the pieces together." Greg didn't come out of his office. Later, I'd hear he resigned before the investigation concluded. There was no announcement, no spectacle. Just an empty chair and a name removed from the org chart. Consequence, not fireworks. The next 6 weeks were a blur of whiteboards, status calls, and late-night revisions. Henderson's team got their system. Maya learned for real, not as a prop. Naomi stepped up and shined. I invoiced at the end of each week and watched my own letterhead look less strange and more like a future. On a Friday, Henderson walked me to the lobby after our final sign-off. "You know," he said, "I've been telling people you're not a miracle worker. You're just prepared, and that's rarer than people think." I laughed. "I'll take that." Outside, the sky was a hard blue. A courier waited by the curb with a small box I wasn't expecting. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was my yellow mug, world's okayest employee, and the photo of my mother and me in a simple new frame. No note, just a quiet return of what should never have been thrown away. That night at my mother's kitchen table, we potted a cutting from her hardy jade plant into a new ceramic pot I'd bought on the walk home. Dirt under our fingernails, the good kind. "Not revenge," she said, pressing the soil gently. "Roots." I smiled and set the pot on the windowsill. The plant looked small there, but steady. It would grow. Greg's 120 messages still sit on my phone, archived and unread. Proof of a week when everything he thought he controlled slipped away. I don't need to answer them. I don't need to tell a story about him. Because the real story is this. 1 week after being told to bounce back, I did. But not to the old place. To my own footing. To work that was mine because I earned it, not because someone allowed it. If you're ever standing in a lobby, staring at garbage bags with your life tossed inside, remember this. You don't owe anyone your silence or your fury. You owe yourself a plan. Keep your receipts. Tell the truth. Build something they can't ignore. And when your phone lights up with desperate messages from the person who underestimated you, you'll be busy, watering your own plant,